So today we have a full house, so we started the shiur in short. We're going to talk about Tveria, we're going to talk about Amat HaMayim, the different situation in the courtyard, how we measure the Eruv, and Taimela will go to the city of Tveria, and there's a lot of point to discuss with Tiberius. So let's go page 87 in the Mishnah. 87 עד המשנה. אמת המים שהיא עוברת בחצר אין ממלאים אלא לשבת אלא אם כן עשו לה מחיצה גבוה 10 טפחים בכניסה וביציאה. רבי יהודה אומר קודש על גבה תידון משום מחיצה. So you have here the water channel that's coming in the yard. Okay, and Rashi said בתוך עוגנה על פי רוחבה. So it comes here in this sense. Okay, so the residents may not draw water from it on Shabbat unless they are erected for a partition 10 handbreadth high and entrance at the exit of the courtyard. So you see here, this is the partition, the mechitza, and this is the mechitza. So that way they can use the water channel in both spots. Another point here is the whole idea. It's the same way we said earlier in the bore, in the pit between two yards, that you need to have a partition. The same here, you need to have a partition each and every place, so it's clear. You have a hecker that it's for the purpose of the water. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kotel she'al gaba tidon mishum mechitza. So Rabbi Yehuda said that all this wall, that there is no need for a special partition here, but instead a wall that runs on the top of it, which means the courtyard wall, is considered a partition. אמר רבי יהודה מעשה באמה של אבל שהיו ממלאים ממנה על פי זקנים בשבת, אמרו לו מפני שלא היה לו כשיעור. So he said it was a story of the city Avel, that it's come like you think about Venice and cities like that. That it's come those water. It's within the yards in the city that people used to use to fill up water. That's the hora'ah, the rules of the elders, the sages on Shabbat, and even they didn't do a partition within that line. They allowed to do it. Why? Because it wasn't in the size of Carmelite, which means it wasn't in a 10 handbreadth, or it doesn't have the 4 handbreadth there. So therefore, it was less than 10 handbreadth deep and less than 10 handbreadth wide. It's permitted to draw water from it even without a partition. So this is a very common question. I see that some of you are concerned about it. In our days, you have sometimes issue with a pool. People, especially in the hot weather like us here in Maryland, so there are people who live in a residential building, they have the pool at the top of the roof. There are people that they have the pool in the yard. There's all kind of, I think in new development there's a pool too, right? Yes. So there's a common question, because if you have a pool within your house, they have the same deen as Reshut HaYachid, it's a private domain, and it's not considering as a Carmelite. But if the entire pool is in the house, including the roof, so it's not even a question, right? The only issue here in the Mishnah is when there's a Carmelite and it's not his, so then it becomes a question. Anyway, let's go to the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan עשו לה בכניסה ולא עשו ביציאה. They make the Amat HaMayim, this line of water at the entrance and not the other side. בכניסה אין ממלאים ממנה בשבת אלא אם כן עשו לה מחיצה 10 טפחים ביציאה ובכניסה, which means that's basically the same Rabbanan in the Mishnah, the same sedition in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kotel she'al gaba tidon mishum mechitza, because that's nikar, that's clear, that's made for the sake of water, so it's effective. אמר רבי יהודה מעשה באמת המים שהייתה באה מאבל לציפורי. This is the story of the stream of water that came from the city of Avel to the city of Tzipori. והיו ממלאים ממנה מים, they were filled up with water בשבת, שהייתה על פי הזקנים, that according to the sages of the city they approve it. אמרו לו, משם ראיה, they said from there you bring a source, מפני שלא הייתה עמוקה שרה ורחבה רבה, they don't have the condition, remember the two conditions, 10 and 4, they need to have the depth of 10 and breadth, the width, the 4, so they have it's רשות היחיד, it's a private domain, it's not Carmeli. תניא אידך, אמת המים העוברת בין החלונות. Now you look at the pictures. Does everyone see the picture? Mm-hmm. Everyone see the picture?
Yes. Right.
Okay. So here's a 307 from the Morot Daf. אמת המים העוברת בין החלונות. You see here, it's the stream of water that come around the windows. So he said, Rashi explained, ומשלשלים הדלי ומניחו על אגפיים. You see the דלי, it's bring it here. So he said, פחות משלושה משלשל דלי וממלא, if this less than 3 hand breadth, and soon the Gemara explain why. So he take this דלי and he filled it up, okay? But he said, שלושה אין משלשל דלי וממלא. If there's 3, you cannot do it. רבן שמעון גמליאל אומר, פחות מ4 משלשל דלי וממלא, 4 אין משלשל דלי וממלא. So רבן שמעון גמליאל hold that the measurement is not 3, it's 4. Now we'll go to detail. If you're talking about amat hamayim, the stream of water itself, so it means that he holds that's considering a Carmeli. So therefore, you cannot enter inside the house because it's a private domain. And Rabban ben Gamliel allowed it, that he said it has to be 4 hand breadth because he holds that Carmelite has to be less than 4 tfachim, 4 hand breadth. Vela ki at Rav Dimi Rabbi Yochanan, when Rav Dimi came to Babylon from Eretz Israel, he said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, En Carmelit Chutam Arba'a. He says that the Carmelite have the precondition that they have to have 4 hand breadth in the width. Leima ketanai amre leshmata. So do you say that this halacha is depend upon the Tanaic disputation? So it means that if this amat hamayim have the 10 and 4, 10 depth and 4 width. Ela, you have to say that the machloket, the disputation between Tanakam and Rabban Gamliel, be'agapea uleachlif. That you have to say that it's applied to the width, and it means, can you switch this dli between this part and the house, because it doesn't contain the prohibition from carrying from a private domain or Reshut HaYachid to Carmelit, because it's considering Mekom Ptur. And from Mekom Ptur to the other one, it's not an issue. Because Tanakama hold that if it's not have the width of 3, it's independent domain and you cannot switch it with others. So now, V'yaha ki'at Rav Dimi, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Makom she'en bo 4 ל-4 לפני רשות היחיד ולפני רשות הרבים, לחטף עליו ולבד שלא יחליפו. So he said, it's permitted for both the people of private domain and the people of the public domain to adjust the burden of their shoulders on it, provided that they don't exchange objects between them toward the Mekom Ptur, toward the place that is a exemption place. So he said, Hatam Reshuyot Doraita. Over there when Rav Dimi talk, it's between the Doraita, the biblical one, which is from the public domain to a private domain. So since the Torah forbids to carry from one to another without putting anything in that exempted domain, like Makom Ptur, so they forbids also when he put down, when he's maniach, because the whole core of transferring from public domain to a private domain, it's usually involved with a biblical prohibition, as long as he's not putting it in the Mekom Ptur. But Hacha, let's turn the page. Hacha Reshuyot Derabanan. We just turned to 87b. We have a large crowd tonight, so you hear all these noises. So even Reshut HaYachid it's a biblical, but the prohibition against transferring from Reshut HaYachid to Carmelit, it's only a rabbinic one. Rabbi Yochanan ברשות דרבנן אמר. So Rabbi Yochanan speaks about the whole idea of transferring toward makom ptur. It's even those domains that forbidden by rabbinic. The Tnanya or the Tnan, that what we learned earlier in the Mishnah in 76b. כותל שבין שתי חצרות גבוה 10 טפחים ורוחב 4. If you have a wall between two domains that have the heights of 10 handbreadth and have the width of 4, מערבין 2 ומערבין 1. So every residence need to have independent עירוב, not one for both. היו בראשו פירות, אלו מכאן ואלו מכאן. If you have at the top a produce, so each one of the residents need to go up independently. ואלו, meaning people of the second yard, עולים מכאן ואוכלים. So they need to go to the top of that wall from that side and eat. נפרץ הכותל. נפרץ הכותל, which means that if there's some hole inside that's large wall, עד 10 אמות, until 10 cubit, מערבין שמיים, which means each group need to do it independently. ואם רצו מערבין לך מפני שהוא כפתח, because in a sense it's like you're making it, it's like the ministry is have the 10 cubit, it's considering a separate entrance, and therefore it's not a renowned, so abrogated the value of the partition of the mechitza. So basically 2 courtyards that divided between this partition by having this entrance, each one of them can make Eruv independently. יותר מכאן מערבין 1 ואין מערבין 2. But they may not establish 2 Eruvim. A breach of the side nullifies the partition as the 2 courtyards merge into a single domain. ואבינן בה, we said earlier on page 66b and 67a, אין בו, meaning applied to the wall, and 4 mai, if it doesn't have 4 טפחים, 4 handbreadth, what's the halacha? אמר רב, if you remember, אוויר שתי רשויות שולטו בו. Rav said that the air space, the air of the 2 domains, controls it. Says, therefore, ולא יזיז בו אפילו נימה, because it's the airspace control, so you shouldn't move even a small, tiny. רבי יוחנן אמר, אלו מכאן ואוכלים, ואלו מכאן ואוכלים, which means that because the head of that wall have the width of 4 handbreadth, so it's considering as an exempt area, and you can carry between that exemplary area to other domain, because we basically hold in leniency. Alright? And ואז דרבי יוחנן לטעמי, רבי יוחנן explained his argument. בחיית הרב דימי אמר רבי יוחנן, מקום שאין בו 4 על 4 מותר לרשות היחיד ובשעות הרבים לחטף עליו ולבד שלא יחליפו. So he said if it's a domain between private and public area, that people can carry a burden on their shoulders, so you can go and carry between that domain, private domain, to a public, as long as you don't pass by to a public domain, to a private domain toward the exemplary area. So the same way as Rabbi Yochanan said that you cannot exchange between the public domain to private domain, even he put something in a makom ptur, the same way he said that you cannot switch between one yard to another. So here you see that Rabbi Yochanan forbids to change even between 2 courtyards that didn't merge with the Eruv. So the Gemara said, he is the Iri Amra. It wasn't Rabbi Yochanan, it is the Iri said on the name of Rabbi Yochanan, because he holds that according to Rabbi Yochanan you cannot switch between 2 domains that forbidden by each other in a rabbinic way. Even he put in between temporarily in the makom ptur, in a place that is exempt. Zeiri kashaha. So if you tell me that's the idea of Zeiri, that you cannot switch between a rabbinic domain toward the makom ptur, toward the exempt area, kashaha. So how you explain this brighter of amat hamayim, of the water, the spring water that passes there, because that's the 3 handbreadth that the brighter speak. They speak about the stream water, that's the way it's called, considering Carmelit according to Tanakama. And Rabbi Yochanan said that Carmelit is not less than 4 handbreadth. So the Gemara says, Ze'iri mokim la be'amat hamayim gufa. Ze'iri hold, that's the way we said originally, that is going straight to the property domain, to the house. Rav Dimi Tanai, Rav Dimi hold that it's a Ze'iri hold that what Rav Dimi sent him of Rabbi Yochanan, that Carmelit is not less than 4 handbreadth, is basically a Tanaic disputation. So you see here 2 points. Point 1, according to Ze'iri, Rabbi Yochanan forbids to transfer from one domain to another, even he put in between in Makom Ptur. Okay, the second, even between the two domains, is forbidden to each other by a rabbinic way. The second one is both Tanakam and Rabban Gamliel disagree what's the measurement of Carmelit, if it's a 4 or 3 handbreadth, and Rabbi Yochanan hold the same as Rabban Gamliel, that Carmelit has to have the condition of 4 handbreadth. But according to Rav Dimi, there's 2 points. Number 1, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he allowed to switch between the 2 domains because they forbid each other by the rabbinic law. So if you put in between a domain that is Mekom Ptur, so it's okay, he can do it, but he forbid the switching between 2 domains that is biblical, the Oraita. Even he put in between in Makom Ptur. Also, Rabbi Yochanan said that Carmelit is not less than 4 handbreadth. That's something that everyone agree upon. So he said here, V'teheve kichorei Carmelit. So now we're going to a picture number 308. So the Gemara asks, according to Ze'iri, that everyone said that you need to have a special measure in order for the Amat to considering a Carmelit. So now we ask, maybe this Amat Hamayim, this part that is in the yard, because Rashi said, Oil v'yesh la shi'ur Carmelit, kodim sh'tikanes la'ir, because they have the measurement of Carmelit before they get to the city, because it's like a little hole close to the Carmelit, so it's continuation, even a small continuation. If you remember in Shabbat, we discussed Chorei Reshut Arabim. So we said in Shabbat, chapter 7, he said that Abaye said that if someone throw an item in the 4 cubits in a public domain, and that item stopped in the hole in the hole that is open to a public domain, so it's considering it's like rest in the public domain. So this the same way we juxtapose here we talk about Chorei Carmelit, and we said Abaye Barabin, Rabbi Chanel Barabin, Amrit Rabau, Ein Chorim leCarmelit. So both of them hold that it's there is no category of cavities for the Carmelit, because the Carmelit is only a rabbinic origin. The halacha is not stringent with regard to these domains. So consequently, Carmelit does not hold these chorim, these cavities. Another thing, another teirutz, another explanation. Rav Ashi Amar afilu teima yesh chorim leCarmelit hanamili bemusmucha hacha bemufleget. Here we talk about the Carmelit that it's attached to that hole, but here it's distance in the 4 handbreadth from the so it doesn't carry the din of Carmelit. The Ritva explained that within that domain is no change in the rochav, in the 4 handbreadth of the yard. Now Ravina Amar Kigon de Apkala. Now we go to the next picture 309. Ravina Amar Kigon de Avad la Nipkei Puma. So Rashi explained, והתחיל המחיצה הסמוך לאגפיה, בתוך עוגנה מכאן ומכאן, ולא חיברה באמצע, ואמרי רבנן, דפחות משלוח חרשה, אמרינן לבוד. So if you see, this is the wall, and this is the part that he put in the partition, and it's here is the less than lavud, because it's less than 3 handbreadth. So then, in that sense, that's hold, in order for the water not to be delayed, and he says, "Va'az du Rabbanan ta'amayu, v'Rabban Shimon Gamliel ta'amei." So the Rabbanan said that lavud apply only the 3 handbreadth, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel go by his that it's the Hevdin Lavud less than 4 handbreadth. The Mishnah said Gzuztra, שהיא למעלה מן המים אין ממלאים ממנה בשבת. So here you have the Gzuztra, the picture number 310, which is the balcony that extends over a body of water. And he said, if a hole open in the floor, the resident may not draw water from it through the hole on Shabbat, unless, when? אלא אם כן עשו לה מחיצה גבוהה 10 טפחים, בין מלמעלה בין מלמטה. So the only if they made a mechitzah in 10 handbreadth in both. This is milamata under that, and this is mechitza milamala. That's on the top of that. וכן שתי גזוסתרות זו למעלה מזו. Remember, if we talk about גזוסתרות one on top of the other, אסור לעליונה ולאסור לתחתונה, שתיהן אסורות שעד שיערבו. So if you have the two such balcony, one above the other, if they erected a partition for the upper balcony, but did not erect for the lower one, the residents is both prohibited from drawing water through the upper one, unless they established an Eruv between them. So you have to say the Mishnah is not according to the opinion of Chanan ben Akavya, because he said if the balconies contain 4x4 cubit and is suspended in the bottom of the water, so one may carve out a hole of 4 handbreadth by 4 handbreadth and he draw water from it. אמר רבי יוחנן משום רבי יוסף בן זמרה לא התיר רבי חנן בן עקביה אלא בימה של טבריה הואיל ויש לה עוגנים ועיירות וקרפיפות מגיפות. He apply only to the Tiberias, the Sea of Galilee, because it's clearly defined banks and are visible on all sides, which means the towns, the enclosures surrounded, etc. אבל בשאר מימות לא. But regard to other waters such as large seas, no, he did not permit them. תנו רבנן, 3 דברים התיר רבי חנן בן עקביה לאנשי טבריה. 3 things Rabbi Yochanan permits 3 activities to the inhabitants of Tiberias. ממלאים מים עם גזוזתרה בשבת. They may draw water from the sea through the hole cut out on Shabbat. וטומנים בעצה. And also they may insulate produce in the pod of the lagoon. Also, ומסתפגים באלונתית, and they may dry themselves on Shabbat with the towel. So there are several halachot. Now the Gemara explains it. ממלאים מים גזוזתרה בשבת, הדאמרה. So they draw water, that's what we said in balcony Shabbat, we just explained it. וטומנים בעצה, and may insulate produce in the pod. How? מהי? דתניא, השכים היום, השכים להביא פסולת. Now we talk about purification of produce. So if he brought rose early in the morning to bring residue from the field, which means the straw of wheat or the stalk of pods of legumes. אם בשביל שיש עליו טל, if because the residue still have dew on it, so he wants to use the moisture for his produce. So therefore, Areihu bechiutan. The Torah said kiutan mayim al zera. So he basically considering part of kiutan, that which means that those the whole idea that if you have a food that became wet toward a liquid product, is not received the impurity only if it was initiation of the owner. So the kiutan is the source that the food cannot receive ritual impurity only if it was that intent. So they use anything like that בקיוטן. ואם בשביל שלא ייבטל ממלאכתו, אינו בחיותן. If in order not to neglect his usual work, it's not considered an instance of if it put, as it was and not in his intention to place the dew on the produce. Tam, we just turned the page, Anshei Tveria, כמי שלא יבטל מלאכתו דמי. All the people in the Tiberias is considering the same as one that not neglect his usual work. And it's not because of the dew became wet, it's just because he's not dealing with neglecting his work. What does that mean when we say that use this towel to what is apply? So they said so someone who is a shower in a sense you go to mikveh, for example, on Shabbat or Yom Tov, so now he's wet. So what do? You take this towel and he basically dry himself, and then you take the towel close to the wall of that bathhouse, but he doesn't carry that towel to his house, even to a closed yard. Why? Because it's the issue of schita, that he may be squeezed the towel, and it's a prohibition of laundry, kibus in Shabbat. He doesn't bring it to people who wash the bathhouse because you don't trust them. They can do these type of things on Shabbat. He can do it, he can carry, and it's not issue, only make sure that it's not in place that is the issue of carrying. That's apply only to use for fill water, but to throw the water is forbidden. So Rav Shizvi asked, you see here in the Gemara, okay, so he said, what's the difference between this case in the hall in the balcony and that with the pit that used in the courtyard for wastewater? So he said, so because the water come out to the public domain, to Rishut Rabim, he said, Hane taimei, hane lo taimei. This water poured out to the courtyard is absorbed, and the other one is not absorbed. So he said, Ikade Amre, Omar Rabba Ravuna, lo teima lemalo to the share, lishpoch asu, lishpoch nami share. Even to throw is also allowed. So, because the one who did it, he doesn't care if the water passed to that partition, that mechitza or not. So it's hard to say that what exactly it was his intent. Amar Rav Shizvi Pshita, that's obvious. It said Hainu Uka. That applied. He said this applies specifically to Uka, but other than that, what they said here. That's specifically for Uka. So because it's field of water, and the water coming to a public domain, so it's obvious that you can use this. Even the water goes straight to the sea. So what Rabbi Baravuna wants to tell us, excuse me, you may say that this one is absorbed, this is not absorbed. So he said, Rabbi Baravuna want to tell us that you can pass that water toward that gzuz tra, and the one who did it doesn't mean that he did it on full intent, that this water will come out from Reshut HaYachid, from private domain to Carmelit, because he doesn't care if those water running out of the partition or not. So just want to add a word in the idea of the nature of Tiberias, because we just talked about Tiberias. Just a few words in regards to the nature of Tiberias, because we talked today about Tveria. There's a famous Gemara in Megillah, Daf 6, that the page 6, that we find that Tiberias, it's also named, it's called Reket. And because even in they said it's like Rekim, the emptiest one, and this city are filled with the opposite way is like filled mitzvot, like pomegranates, and filled with the seeds. So the famous Chidar, Rabbi Chaim David Azulai, the great Sephardic rabbi, explained one reason why only Tiberius is mentioned in this regard. So he said the whole idea it's that the Gemara tells us in the Tractate Shabbat, page 118, we studied it not long ago, that the people there, because they keep Shabbat so carefully, they become filled with mitzvot like pomegranate. So it is pleasurable that this is one reason why the Shekhinah, with that regard, and the Bet Din first returned to Tiberias, because if you look at when it was the first time they used the Bet Din was there. But this was a last place to which the Sanhedrin was exiled, and will be the first place where they return before restoring, which we believe the third Beit HaMikdash, the third temple. So all of this, it's a merit of the Chida said of keeping Shabbat meticulously. It's a book called Tabur Haaretz, very interesting book. And in that book, he brings the Chida, and he adds, and he said that it emerges from the Gemara that we just studied in Eiruvin 87, that the people of Tiberia were Baalei Malacha, the people that work hard to make a living, but which our sages say that they are like greater than Yirat Shamayim, that they're really working hard. And the Sha'ar HaChatzer is a book. He adds to that, and he said that the uniqueness of Tiberias is due to the wall of Miriam, which reside in its midst. We know that it's a famous story that the Arizal of the 16th century, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi, he first began teaching his great student Reb Chaim Vital. So they taught him Kabbalah. So the legend said that he forgot all everything that he learned. So one day the Arizal took his student Reb Chaim Vital to Tveria, to Tiberias, and he gave him a drink from the well of Miriam. That's a famous legend. From that time, Reb Chaim Vital began to remember and delve into the depth of Kabbalah, and he remembered everything. So the Tabur Haaretz bring that idea, and he adds to that this is another possible reason why even the empty one of Tiberias are filled of mitzvot, like a pomegranate, because they drink from the Kinneret, the river of Kinneret in Tveria in Tiberias, which contains according again to the legend, the well of Miriam, and these purify their bodies, and they seek to fulfill mitzvot, and I filled with them. That's a famous explanation of Pedach Enaim, Gemara in Megillah, page 6. Now we're going to a practical halachot. Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 356. Amat hamayim shebachatzer, a water channel 10 handbreadth deep and 4 handbreadth wide, passes through the courtyard. So it is permitted to draw water from it only if the partition 10 handbreadth high has been erected in its entrance and its exit. A channel of smaller dimensions share the status of domain in which is located. The next halacha, if you can please turn around, excellent, thank you. It's the amat hamayim ha'overet ben hachalonot. If you have here, if a water channel 10 handbreadth deep and 4 handbreadth wide was partitioned at both ends, and this is the amat hamayim, and it said each constructed from 2 parts, the partition have a legal status of the solid partitions, and if they are within the 3 handbreadth of each other, and it is therefore permitted to draw water from this channel. If a water channel does not have such a partition, the residents may not draw water from the channel. That's the Ravina explanation of the Braita. Now we also learn about Gzuztra. we said if we have a balcony above the water, with regard to a balcony that extends over the water, which has, and one, let's see, in the next page, yes, here, thank you. So if you said the balcony that extends over the water, which has an entrance opening onto it from the house, so they said it is only permitted to draw water from a hole in the middle of the balcony if it is enclosed by a partition of 10 handbreadth high, either above or below the balcony. The last halacha of today is Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 301, Mistapek be'alontit. It is permitted to dry oneself with a towel on Shabbat, and even to bring it home. However, one may not give it to the bathhouse attendants because it's expected that they will wring out, which means they do the schita. It's like a laundry and pulling out the water.